And more with my panel tonight. Jacqueline Foster, the Conservative peer and former member of the European Parliament, and Matt Larser, the former Labour advisor. But before we get stuck in, let's cross live to tonight's latest news headlines.
Very good evening to you. The top story tonight at 6. Well, the Princess of Wales has revealed her cancer is in remission. In an emotional Instagram post, she thanked staff at the Royal Marsden Hospital for their exceptional care, saying it's a relief to be in remission after chemotherapy. Princess Catherine shared what adjusting to life looks like after a cancer diagnosis, saying it takes time, but expressed hope for a fulfilling year ahead. The message signed Catherine also thanked supporters for their kindness over the past year. And in other news today, Tulip Siddiq has resigned from government, calling her position a distraction amid corruption probes in Bangladesh. Her resignation came just hours after a criminal case was filed against her, accusing her of acquiring land illegally with her aunt, the ex-Prime Minister of Bangladesh. The Labour MP is also under investigation here in the UK over allegations involving properties linked to her aunt's allies. Well, it's the second resignation in just 6 months, piling pressure on Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. And Rachel Reeves has been grilled in Parliament this afternoon after her China trip sparked political outrage. She defended her visit, highlighting agreements reached with the world's second-largest economic power.
Opportunity to make working people off by making Britain better off. That is the mandate that this government has, and this is what we will deliver.
Despite calls for her sacking, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, insists Rachel Reeves will remain as Chancellor until the next election. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride slammed Reeves for leaving financial turmoil here in the UK and called it a crisis made in Downing Street.
To go or not to go, that is now a question. The Prime Minister will be damned if he does, but he will surely be damned if he does not. The British people deserve better.
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
In other news, detectives investigating the murder of 14-year-old Kellyan Bukasa in Woolwich last Tuesday say they want to speak to 2 teenagers. Police have now named 15-year-old Colin Chabikwa and 16-year-old Masawa Zazi, urging anyone who may know their whereabouts to call 999 immediately. Kellyan was fatally stabbed on a bus near Woolwich Church Street in London and sadly died at the scene, despite efforts from paramedics and air ambulance services. Detectives say they're now following multiple leads and have ramped up patrols and weapons searches in the area. Anyone with information is being urged to contact police or Crime Stoppers anonymously. And a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal is said to be on the brink, with talks resuming in Doha today. President Joe Biden says the agreement, which includes a surge of aid to Palestinians and a phased hostage release, is now closer than ever. Hamas is reported to have accepted that deal, but Qatari mediators warn it could still fall apart in the final days. Well, with Donald Trump's inauguration now looming just next week, pressure is also mounting to seal that deal, which could see Israeli troops begin to withdraw. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you at 7 o'clock for another full roundup. Now, though, it's over to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, my panel, Baroness Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former member of the European Parliament, and Matt Larser, the former Labour advisor. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
You're very welcome tonight. And Happy New Year to you both. I haven't seen you this year yet, have I? You know the drill. Good evening to each and every single one of you at home as well. What's on your mind this evening? I want to hear from you. Whatever it is, you can get in touch with me all the usual ways. Email me. gbviews at gbnews.com is my email address. gbnews.com/yoursay is how you can get in touch on the website. And, of course, you can tweet or X me. I really do enjoy reading your emails, by the way. I have to stress this point because I obviously can't read them all out and respond to you whilst I'm live on air. there, but I really do enjoy hearing your stories, your rants, your moans, your celebrations. You do get in touch and tell me all kinds of things, and I very much appreciate it, so thank you very much for that. AP Andy, he's got in touch and said, if pomposity was gold, Mel Stride would have personally filled the financial black hole himself this afternoon. He thought he was taming the shrew, but his winter's tale was much ado about nothing. You're a sophisticated man, Andy. I like it. We'll be talking about Rachel Reeves, Mel Stride as well, a little bit later on in the programme. But for now, I want to start with a little bit of good news, because there is so much kind of darkness that goes on in this world. Many of you will have been familiar with, we actually broke the story on this programme about the Princess of Wales, that very sad news when she announced that she had cancer. Well, this afternoon, she's now updated us all and announced that she's in remission after receiving cancer treatment. She was there today at the Royal Marsden Hospital. And she released a nice, touching post, actually, on Twitter and Instagram. She said she wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you to the Royal Marsden for looking after her. Let me cross live to our Royal editor, Cameron Walker, for a full update on that. Good evening to you, Cameron.
Good evening, Michelle. Well, I remember sat with you in that studio back in March where we were having to tell you, GB News viewers, the news that the Princess has been diagnosed with cancer and was undergoing preventative chemotherapy. And what a turn of events just 9 months later here in January. It's incredibly good news because the Princess of Wales has confirmed she is in remission. She is looking forward to the year ahead and has a lot to look forward to. She describes it as a fulfilling year ahead, suggesting to me that she is planning to carry out a lot more engagements than she did last year. But all of this was sparked by a visit to the Royal Marsden Hospital behind me earlier on today. This was the hospital. It's been confirmed today that the Princess secretly carried out or underwent even her preventative chemotherapy. And she remarks walking through the front door here, Michelle, but it was nice to actually walk through the front entrance because for the few months that she was undergoing chemotherapy, she was having to secretly go around the back and, of course, be in a private room. But she spent a lot of time talking to a number of patients here, hearing their stories and, of course, thanking members of staff who were looking after her during that treatment. And it has also been announced today that she has become joint patron of the Royal Marsden Hospital alongside Prince William. She said in her statement this evening that she looks forward to supporting that hospital, a world leader in cancer research, alongside her husband, Prince William. And, of course, the Royal Marsden is a hospital with a historic royal link. It was Diana, Princess of Wales, who was first the royal patron of this hospital, followed by Prince William, and now, of course, it is very much a joint mission for the Prince and Princess of Wales. But there is still a note of caution here. Although the Princess is in remission, Kensington Palace and royal sources appear to indicate that it's still going to be a gradual return to royal duties for the Princess. So she's very much taking it one step of it as it comes. It's understood that she is not going to be international travel is very much off the table for this year at this stage. It does contradict what Prince William alluded to at the end of last year, but nonetheless, I think what we need to take away from this, Michelle, is that it's incredibly positive news that the Princess of Wales is now in remission and looks forward to a fulfilling year ahead.
Indeed, Cameron Walker, thank you very much for that update. I remember, as Cameron just alluded to then, he and I did do that show together, and I remember just how many of you got in touch about that time. Some of you, very sadly yourselves, had received cancer diagnoses, or your loved ones had received cancer diagnoses. And I remember one of the things that really did come through when I was talking to you guys that night was somehow you felt, I don't know how to word it, but like a sense of solidarity. It really made you feel connected at that point in time, and there was such an outpouring of love for her on that night, and it's coming through again on the inbox that so many people are just really delighted to hear that news. I really do think she's a very much loved member of the royal family, isn't she, Jacqueline?
She absolutely is, and I think one of the really good things that have come out of this, and cancer is a very difficult subject, is the fact that both the King and Catherine basically opened up to the public and said, these are the problems. OK, she's not gone into too much detail with Catherine, but at the end of the day, what it has done, it's led to people, a lot of men, to go and get checked, and a lot of women as well. in other areas. So hopefully that's the benefit that's come out of all of this. I think we all wish her well. I think most of us and most of the viewers will have been touched by, if they haven't had treatment themselves, the family members that we may have lost over the years. We know there's magnificent treatment around. It's just making sure people get that. And there are a lot of very good stories that come out of this. It's not all depressing in terms of survival rates these days. So fingers crossed. And onward and upward. Onwards and upwards. Matt Larson?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's fantastic news. It's a lovely start to the new year to have this good news come out. And I absolutely agree with Jacqueline. I mean, I think that it's a reminder for everybody that good stories can come out. There are positive cancer stories as well, that people's cancer journey often leads to remission with the right treatment. And it's fantastic that they are taking over as patrons of the Royal Marsden, an amazing hospital. And clearly the commitment that you could see that in the pictures from the visit today, the kind of, you know, this obviously means an awful lot to Catherine, and clearly she's going to get stuck into that role. So I think it's fantastic for the hospital, but also just for anybody who is at the moment going through a cancer journey, who's either themselves has got cancer or they're supporting somebody with cancer. It's a huge shot in the arm. So yeah, absolutely. We can all rally round and say, good.
It is. It's a very scary, when you hear that word. I mean, I've told you, I've been transparent. My partner was diagnosed with cancer not that long ago, and I think when you hear that word, it's still, to this day, despite advances in technology and all the rest of it, it does just send a chill down your spine. It really, really does. And above all else, I mean, we might call her Princess Catherine and all the rest of it, but to some children, she's just mummy. And I think, you know, when you're in that role, your health is probably one of the most important things, isn't it? So, of course, from all of us here at GBNews, we, of course, send all of our best wishes. And it's nice, isn't it, to start the programme on a nice, positive note. Worry not, the normal service will be resumed in just a minute, because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the goings on in Parliament today. The anti-corruption minister resigns for being accused of corruption. Yeah, you heard that right. What a mess. See you in 2.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah.
So yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Moritz as we speak. So yeah, it's, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the Bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? What? So you got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that Bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Yeah. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics, and staying still and let Brad do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them, because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not... Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
Stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, Michelle. Dewberry till 7, alongside me, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Matthew Larza. Good evening to Julie in the West Midlands. She's got in touch. She said she's watching the show for the very first time. You're very welcome, Julie, as are each and every single one of you. We shared that good news at the top of the programme about Princess Catherine. There's a lot of love coming in for her. I've also got to honestly reflect the inbox as well, because there's an awful lot of people that are saying, I bet she never had to spend any time in a corridor in the NHS. Many of you just so upset and distressed about the state of the NHS, especially when it comes to that corridor care. It's absolutely awful, isn't it? Very sad indeed. Look, let's talk about a story that has captivated the attention of many people. I talk about Tulip Siddiq, the Treasury Minister. Do you remember there's been so much pressure now on her to resign? She was an anti-corruption minister, and there's been many allegations relating to family members, particularly the auntie in Bangladesh. It was the former Prime Minister. She, Tulip Siddiq, referred herself to the Standards Minister, and basically he has reported back today, this is Lori Magnus, he's reported back to the Prime Minister saying that he's done his homework. I mean, it's a 3-page letter. It's quite a lengthy letter. He basically says he's done his homework. He repeats quite a lot of times that there was a lot of information lacking that he hasn't been able to access. I found the final paragraph of this document quite interesting. He says, given the nature of her ministerial responsibilities, which includes the promotion of the UK financial services sector and so on and so forth, it is regrettable that Tulip was not more alert to the potential reputational risks, both to her and the government, arising from her close family's association with Bangladesh. I would not advise that this shortcoming be taken as a breach of the ministerial code, but you will want to consider her ongoing responsibilities in the light of this. So that's Lori Magnus there, independent advisor on ministerial standards, his letter to Keir Starmer. I have to follow on and say that Tulip Siddiq has then resigned from that position. Where are you on this, Baroness Foster?
Well, first of all, I think it was only a matter of time. Secondly, she wasn't a new MP. I mean, it's not like somebody's just come into Parliament 6 months ago. I think she came into Parliament at the same time as Keir Starmer. There are also quite strict rules when you come to ministerial codes, which I would have imagined she would have been aware of. I mean, the amount of scandal surrounding this government, and they've only been in power for 6 months, is astonishing, frankly, from the Lord Alley and Close, you know, with half of the cabinet and many others. And now we move on to this, and here we have somebody who has lived and owned properties in London who didn't actually know who really owned them, but had yet signed paperwork. Of course, you can't choose your family. And the fact she has a very prominent family in Bangladesh, that's not a criticism. But when you are linked so closely, then you obviously have to be extremely careful where you're seen and what you do. Apparently, at one stage a few years ago, she was with her aunt in Russia or somewhere or other where they were signing a nuclear deal. Now, you know, a British politician, you need to be circumspect about, you know, where you're seen and what you do. So, as I said, I think Sir Laurie's done a very comprehensive review. He said here, you know, she inadvertently misled the public. I mean, my question then would be for Sir Keir Starmer, surely to goodness, when you're appointing your ministers, you need to be doing some real homework with them to ensure that you're not putting yourself in that sort of position this early in the day. And, you know, we took plenty of criticism when we were in government, and we had people that fell by the wayside. So, you know, we all have to live and learn. But this, I think, was completely avoidable, and she should have known better, and he should have actually made sure that she was a totally credible person to be a minister, particularly in that department as well.
Well, Tulip, Matt, says that she's resigning to avoid distractions, but I think that ship has sailed a bit, really, because when your anti-corruption minister is being accused of corruption, the distraction has already occurred.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think she's absolutely right to have resigned. I think on the positive side, this shows that the ethics process works in terms of Sir Laurie's done his investigation. Although he didn't call for her directly to resign, he effectively called for her to be removed from her responsibilities on anti-corruption, so her position to become untenable at the end of the letter. There were periods under Boris's tenure when there wasn't when the ethics standards person wasn't there, because several of them left in quick succession. I'm glad that there is one now, and it's good that system has worked. But look, I don't think she should have been given that job. As a Labour person, I think this is a totally, as Jacqueline said, it's a totally it's a unforced error. It's an own goal. Her links to Bangladesh had been long known. What Sir Laurie has found out is that the close links to a controversial regime like that made that particular job very difficult. They're
so
not
what
actually.
Was she doing in that role? Because many people will be sitting there, they're writing. I can see it on social media. They'll be getting in touch now, saying that this is a demonstration of Keir Starmer's poor judgment.
Well, I think it is a demonstration in the first instance of Sue Gray's poor judgment. Sue Gray's job. Remember when she was brought in, she was herself a former ethics watcher in the Cabinet Office as a civil servant. She was brought in to prepare for government. I think one of the big frustrations that Labour have, I was with a ministerial advisor on Sunday night, and they were saying, oh gosh, all the work we thought had been done hadn't been done. And one of the things that hadn't been done was thinking, is this the round peg in a round hole? This isn't the job that I would have given her if I'd been doing that. I think that she could have been given another job which didn't involve any perceived clash between her family, which, as Jacqueline says, you can't choose your family, but her responsibility. In this job, she's there to kind of fight financial crime. She had stood back from anything to do with Bangladesh, but I don't think it was the right role for her.
If I can just say, it's not just about this job. She has acknowledged, and he has found, that she was living in properties that they didn't know where the ownership was. She is a politician. You have to be aware of your circumstances. You have to be aware of what is transparent, and people can make an error.
Yeah.
And I accept that.
I think they were before she was an MP, but I agree with you. I would have asked more questions. Nobody's ever given me a house.
For a long time, and so you have to make sure that you are absolutely squeaky clean when it comes to, particularly then once you're appointed as a minister, because the codes are there.
And I think if you've got a family that's that controversial, you want to make extra efforts to make sure you ask questions.
I think he's scored an own goal here, because OK, she has now resigned, been pushed basically, but at the end of the day, I mean, it really is when you've got a government that's only been in for 6 months. I mean, they seem to be up to the necks in it, and it's only January, so they need to get a grip.
Well, she's the second one to go after Lou Hay and her mobile phone.
People need to make sure that if they're going to hold these positions, that they are the right people in those positions.
Absolutely. You said live and learn, and I hope that the number 10 realise that they need to think a bit more about everybody they put into a job, whether they're the right person for the job and whether they're the right person to be a minister.
It wasn't that long ago, it feels only like a few days, it's probably a bit longer, where Keir Starmer actually said that he had full confidence in her.
Yeah.
And actually, he's been quite generous in the comments and saying to them there's sort of indications that there may be a swift comeback. I personally wouldn't make it too swift, because I think that there's a sort of, slightly odd taste left in the mouth by somebody who didn't ask. I mean, she says that she thought the house that had been bought for her, which she then took over the ownership of, that it had been bought by her family. So Laurie hasn't been able to find all the paperwork. Certainly, I think if somebody's living in a flat worth several £100,000, I'd want to know in detail, and somebody gave it to me, who was giving it to me. Not that anybody's ever going to give me a flat like that. So I think she needs to keep a low profile.
Other properties that were worth millions. I mean, this really brings into question his judgment. I think the Prime Minister's judgment is actually suspect, and I don't think it leaves for confidence. Frankly, in certainly some of the appointments.
I think one issue here is that she's the neighbouring MP. They came in at the same time together, and I think he may have been a little bit dazzled by friendship, which is, is not great.
Well, you can't be dazzled if you want to have the top job in the United Kingdom.
And he needs to learn the lesson.
And friends fall sometimes, that's politics.
Absolutely.
Well, Sir Laurie Magnus, he wrote in his letter, and this is a quote, a lack of records and a lapse of time has meant that, unfortunately, I've not been able to obtain comprehensive comfort in relation to all the UK property-related matters which have been referred to in the media. Let me just quickly ask you this, because there's suggestions from some that actually this doesn't go far enough and that she should now resign as an MP as well. Do you think she should?
No, absolutely not, because she wasn't actually found to have broken the ministerial code. Instead, it was thought that Sir Laurie, in his judgment, said that it wasn't the right job for her. I think it's right that she hasn't been moved to another job, that she's left the government. And, frankly, if more questions emerge, she needs to spend it, which they may well do because of the situation in Bangladesh, the change of government and revelations that are coming out. She'll need to answer those. but as things stand, no, she's fine to stay an
Don't forget, the
MP.
constituents can actually get a petition together.
They can.
And if her constituents decide that they don't think she is the fit person to be their representative, then you never know what can go.
Absolutely, but at the moment, I think she's safe.
Well, are any of you out there her constituents? I'd be fascinated to understand your thoughts. Do you still have trust in her? If you voted her in, do you sit there and say, yes, she's still the person for me? Or do you perhaps have a different view? I want your thoughts on that. Someone who won't be resigning anytime soon, I imagine, Rachel Reeves. She's been speaking out in the Commons today. Let's have a listen to that after the break.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to tomorrow, and there will be increasing amounts of sunshine from the northwest, and it is going to stay generally dry for most of us. Also, mostly dry through this evening and overnight because of the fact that we have high pressure to the south of us dominating the story. That being said, there's still a weak front across us, and that's bringing some thick cloud across central parts and some drizzly rain, particularly over the higher ground towards the west. There will be some clear skies, particularly over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, but for many it's a cloudy night, and with that then temperatures not dropping a huge amount. A pretty mild start to tomorrow morning, albeit across some eastern parts of Scotland where we have those clearer skies it could be a touch chillier here, and there may even be a little bit of frost. The flip side of that though is there will be some brighter skies across eastern Scotland first thing tomorrow morning. Notice towards the far northwest there's some rain waiting to push its way in and some blustery winds in association with this, but across much of Scotland, northern England, quite a bit of cloud to start, a much sunnier start though for Northern Ireland. Lots of cloud across central southern England and also Wales, and here it's going to be quite low in places, so some hill fog, some murky conditions, even a bit of drizzly rain, could be a little bit dank at times as we go through the morning. As we go into the afternoon, we are going to see increasing amounts of sunshine across much of Scotland, northern and western England and Wales, holding on to the grey, cloudy skies though across parts of the southeast. Temperatures again a little bit above average for the time of year across the north, generally getting into double figures, nearer normal towards the south. Looking ahead to Thursday, and again, it's a bit of a northwest-southeast split when it comes to cloud amounts, so staying cloudy and grey towards the southeast, most places having another largely dry day though. And the mostly dry weather continues as we go through the end of the week and into the weekend, but it is going to be pretty cloudy for most of us, and we're going to see our temperatures dropping as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems continue up in West Yorkshire tonight for the M606. The motorway remains closed northbound from junction 2 to 3 off the Staygate roundabout heading towards Bradford at the scene of an accident. Accused building back towards the M62. On the Surrey stretch of the M25, the clockwise carriageway partly blocks from junction 9 to 10 just before the A3 at Wisley. There's been an accident not being helped, of course, by the ongoing roadworks on that stretch. And in Surrey on the M3 heading away from London from junction 1 to 2 down to the M25. The two inside lanes are free, blocks off by an accident. In Suffolk, the A14 westbound closed off the Copdock interchange south of Ipswich at the scene of a serious accident. And in Devon, midway between Tiverton and Barnstaple, the A361 shut near to Bishmore Gate following an accident. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock. If you're just joining us, good evening to you. Alongside me, Jacqueline Foster, the Tory peer and former member of the European Parliament, and Matthew Laza, the former Labour advisor. So many of you getting in touch. Elizabeth says, what a tough 2024 Princess Catherine had. We're wishing her all the very best this year. It's fantastic news. So many of you feeling very happy about that great news today. John says she is a fantastic role model. Johnny says, good news about Princess Kate. So pleased another person has made it. Sadly, my wife didn't. So I always celebrate and still feel grateful that somebody else has beaten this awful disease. I'm sorry to hear your news. Susan says, I'm overjoyed that the princess is in remission. My daughter, at the very same age, was diagnosed at the same time, and I am praying for her remission too. Susan, I'm really sorry to hear that, and all of us will join in your thoughts and prayers, I'm sure. And And Gillian says, praise God, Princess Catherine is in remission. We have all been praying for her. Gillian, you could add Susan's daughter, I think, to your prayers as well. I'm sure that would be very appreciated. Now, we've just been talking before the break about Tulip Siddiq. There was many questions. Should she stay? Should she go? Well, now we know she has resigned because of allegations of corruption, which is a little bit awkward when your remit is trying to prevent corruption, isn't it? Anyway, Chris Philp, he has been speaking out, Shadow Home Secretary. Let's take a listen.
I think the Prime Minister was far too slow to act in this case. The independent advisers' reports say there are still a number of unanswered questions about the origin of some of these extremely expensive properties that Tulip Siddiq somehow purchased. She had no visible means to do so. She herself claims to have forgotten certain information about how she came to own them. There are lots of unanswered questions about whether these properties are connected to Tulip Siddiq's aunt's corrupt regime in Bangladesh.
Well, there you go. That debate, I am sure, will rumble on and on. But also, I mean, I shouldn't laugh because it's very, very serious topics, everyone. But things do sometimes feel that they are descending into a bit of a farce when it comes to politics in this country. I don't know if any of you caught the front page of the Daily Star newspaper today. But do you remember that whole debacle with the lettuce when it was Liz Truss? Well, now they've got another lettuce. This time it is Rachel Reeves. Look at it. I actually found that quite scary if you're listening on the radio. It's basically a lettuce, you know, I am describing it accurately. It's a lettuce with a wig on and a pair of eyes. Looks very scary to me. Anyway, it says that should we be popping out for another lettuce? When the lettuces start getting wheeled out, you know, it's never a good sign, don't you? Anyway, Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Chancellor, I know we're laughing. It's a very serious topic, it is, but I just caught that, the glimpse of that front page. It did make me chuckle. Anyway, look, Rachel Reeves, she was in the Commons today, speaking out, defending herself. Let's take a listen.
Growth is the #1 mission of this Labour government, and to grow the economy we need to help great British businesses export around the world. That includes to China. Not engaging is simply not an option. Next week I will be meeting with business leaders, investors and entrepreneurs at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos to make the case that the UK is one of the best places in the world to invest. And in the coming weeks I will be setting out further details of our plans to kickstart growth in the economy after 14 years of failure from the party opposite.
Well, Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor, he was having none of it. Take a listen to him.
The pound has hit a 14-month low. Government borrowing costs are at a 27-year high. Growth has been killed stone dead. Inflation is rising, impacting millions. Interest rates are staying higher for longer, and business confidence has fallen through the floor. The party opposite talked down the economy. They crippled businesses with colossal taxes, breaking all their promises. This is a crisis made in Downing Street.
I'll start with you on this, Matthew. That was very damning, I felt, from Mel Stride there. Where do you think and how do you think Rachel Reeves is doing in terms of her response and reaction to all of this?
Well, I think she's had quite a good day. I think that the Daily Star's lettuce will, I'm afraid, wilt before Rachel Reeves' career as Chancellor. I think Rachel Reeves is safe for now and safe, actually, as was said yesterday by Keir, for the duration of the Parliament, certainly as long as Keir is Prime Minister, which at the moment I think will be for the duration of the Parliament. Look, nobody's going to pretend that it hasn't been a difficult week for her. And it was very unfortunate that the trip to China was just as the bond markets were doing their thing. She had to go because otherwise it looks like panic.
Hang on a second, because yes, that might have been a planned visit, but actually there was an urgent question posed before she'd actually gone. She didn't even respond. And actually, Mel Stride, I'll play this, he did a bit of a gag, actually. It made me chuckle. I think I've been in a strange mood today. But he was on about this. Where was Rachel Reeves? Why didn't she come back to the Commons to answer this urgent question? Listen to what he said.
Chancellor, of course, ducked the difficult questions by jetting off to Beijing. I believe that in Labour circles they are calling it the Peking duck, Mr. Speaker. Well,
I think even Jonathan Reynolds there thought it was quite funny.
It raised a smile, but I don't think anybody is calling it the Peking duck. She sent Darren Jones, who's Chief Secretary of the Treasury, also in the Cabinet. So I think that was fine.
But other people don't think it was fine, though. This is the issue.
Mel Stride doesn't, and that's his job. I mean, I would say the same if I was a Shadow Chancellor, but I don't think the Labour...
It's not just Mel Stride, Matt. A lot of people out there, because at the end of the day, Mel Stride has just done a very succinct job in painting the picture as it currently looks on the landscape today. And ultimately, if things continue the way that they are today, there are risks coming down the pike that people will be concerned about because they will affect potentially people at home. We might have to stage interventions such as spending cuts, such as tax rises, changing the fiscal rules. That's an option to have. So this is a very serious matter.
Absolutely.
People want to feel like the Chancellor herself is taking these domestic issues seriously and not just going on a jolly over to China.
Oh, I'm sure. I wouldn't quite describe it as a jolly because I'm sure she wished she didn't have to go on it because, it obviously took her focus somewhat away while she was doing that. These are very serious issues. There's no denying that the borrowing costs for the government are an issue because the more expensive it gets for the government to borrow, the less money she has to spend on other things. The issue has been borrowing costs have risen for the States. They've risen in Germany. They've risen in France. They have risen slightly, and it is just slightly more here because of nervousness around what will happen as a consequence of the budget, and that will be the key question on which she'll be judged. She would insist they've got a plan for growth, that the bad news in terms of the tax rises are out of the way. If they're not, she's in trouble. If we do start to see green shoots and sort of sentiment improve, then she's got more time to deliver that growth strategy.
Do you feel optimistic at home? Tell me your thoughts. Jacqueline?
Oh, this isn't just about borrowing. Of course, we know what the consequences are borrowing. This is, quite frankly, you cannot buck the markets. I think it was Margaret Thatcher said that many, many, many years ago. And you can't because the markets will react, whether they have confidence in whoever the Chancellor is and the decisions that they make. I think Rachel Reeves has been out of her depth since the beginning. The entire budget was an oxymoron, which means, on the one hand, they're saying, this is a budget for growth, and the only thing that they've done is absolutely murder small and medium-sized businesses in particular, but it has affected big business too. Obviously, with the increase in national insurance for the employers with no notice, an increase in the minimum wage with no notice, what they propose for the farmers, which is obviously a huge part of our economy. And it's tanking. We know that the markets are losing confidence as we go. It's not good for the United Kingdom. And to say it was necessary to go to China, OK, people, of course they do in these positions, have to go abroad. But how long do you need to stay there, for example? She's come back with a few $100 million, apparently, which is all to be welcomed, in some deals or other. We don't know what they are. And at the same time, stood at the dispatch box and is defending, frankly, the indefensible.
Carol's been in touch on Twitter. And Carol, you are reflecting a concern that's come through my inbox from many viewers that are watching this. She says, Michelle, I'm livid. Rachel Reeves is in front of Parliament saying that she is going to Davos. It's a place that Starmer said that he would choose over Westminster. She says this is disgusting. And this is one of the things that people are slightly concerned about. There's been so much foreign travel in the early days of this administration where there seems to be, here in this country, so many domestic issues. And what Carol is talking about, we'll all be familiar with that. There was that quick-fire question where Keir Starmer was asked Davos or Westminster. Without hesitation whatsoever, he said Davos. And this is a concern that many, many people have, that the domestic agenda is essentially playing second fiddle, whether or not it's to the likes of Davos, World Economic Forum, international governments and so on and so forth. What would you say back to that?
So I'd say that the government is conscious of that, and I think that is a danger. I mean, I feel a bit sorry for them because one of them, the Air Miles Keir jibe, because he was been on a plane for so many hours of his premiership. I mean, one of the problems is that the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting was in the South Seas, and he could not go because the King had gone. It probably, frankly, in terms of the outcomes, and it wasn't a particularly significant one. You could have chopped it, but there was a reason to go. But their government has to rein in. within the appearance that it's open to international events. I thought it was a daft answer that he gave to that question.
Yeah, but it was instinct. When you have a quick-fire question, you answer on instinct, and I think
it's because he doesn't like the House of Commons. I don't think it doesn't mean he doesn't like Britain, but obviously people can give that a perception.
Yeah, but he was asked that specific question, Davos or Westminster, and his instinct, and this is quite telling to a lot of people, he instinctively chose the likes of Davos, chose the likes of the World Economic Forum and so on and so forth. He then, not that long ago actually, went on to tweet about the likes of BlackRock and celebrating working closely with them. Those are kind of things that do raise alarm bells with a lot of people.
I think it's a fine line that you've got to meet, because you've got to encourage investment and you've got to deal with chief executives. We had the investment summit a few months ago. We've seen the investment announcements around AI that they did yesterday. But absolutely, if people perceive that you're on the side exclusively of big business and not on the side of people at home, then you're in political trouble.
Got the whole issue with the World Economic Forum on this sort of globalisation agenda, basically riding roughshod over national sovereignty in a way, and the certain messages have come out of WEF. Which, to my view, have been of great concern. I have no issue with politicians travelling, but there has to be a balance to be struck. And when you are coming in as a new government like this, of course there's certain things that you've got to attend, but you've also got to be discerning and make sure you're spending time here. And at the dispatch box, Rachel Reeves disappeared to China, and her number two ended up at short notice having to answer questions in Parliament.
This might be an unpopular view, but I actually think that, and this is completely going off topic, but I actually think that Darren Jones is quite a good communicator.
Yeah, I was going to say, some people think
But he wasn't happy last week, Michelle, because apparently he had about 2 minutes' notice and had to end up at the dispatch box answering questions which actually the Chancellor herself should have been replying to.
He's definitely a rising star. I mean, some people say that he might replace it if she went. I don't think she will go.
Well, he's defending the indefensible really reasonably well, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was at all happy then.
I'd invest in Darren Jones, as it were, in the political stock market at the moment. Other people are doing less well. You might have expected to do well.
Yeah, but if he's supporting these policies, I'm afraid Darren's not going to last much longer either.
No, but I've been always quite impressed. I don't think, no offence to the fella, but I don't think it should have been him that was answering that question. I do think it actually should have been our Chancellor facing the music there, but notwithstanding that, I was, and I have been, when I've seen him previously on other things as well, quite impressed with him.
Yes.
I do think he is one to watch, perhaps. Look, so many of you getting in touch on that. You mentioned investment summit. I will never get over until the day I die the fact that this government had an investment summit and didn't invite Elon Musk because he'd said mean things about them on Twitter. I'll never get over that one, never. Anyway, look, keep your thoughts coming in after the break. Kemi Badenoch, she has found herself in hot water. Also, as well, I've got something that I must talk to you about that's going on in France. I'm in a strange mood, I do confess, but you won't believe your eyes and ears when I tell you this story. See you in 2.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you are searching for any winter sun, you'll find it in Iberia, but it's going to be breezy in the Canaries and there'll be further showers across much of Greece. Cyprus is looking fine and warmer than average for the time of year. This area of low pressure bringing some showery rain to the south of Italy and Sicily. Balearics, Spain, Portugal, mostly fine, plenty of sunshine, but an area of showers will approach here during Thursday and Friday, making it feel a little cooler.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to Liam Wildish. Liam, well, I'd like to think he's a friend of mine because I follow him on Instagram, on TikTok there as well.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
Big fan, because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, Well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So basically, long story short, about 6 years ago I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So basically I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness of my window cleaning business at the time. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GB News viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wildish, the sign guy, can sort you out.
if you find Liam the sign guy online, drop me a message, let me know, and I'll add you to my list of places.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry, Tulip Siddiq, Baroness Jacqueline Foster and Matthew Laza alongside me. Hans has been in touch. Tulip Siddiq should never have been given the job in the first place. Michelle, is as simple as poor judgment from Starmer. Brian says at the end of the day she should be resigning as an MP. Not a lot of sympathy for her, I've got to say. Ben says that she was asked to resign essentially to take the pressure off Rachel Reeves. You say she was essentially a lamb to a slaughter, Simon says. All these kind of resignations and such, Michelle, shows why we have no confidence in our ministers. He says, however, we don't need any more crowing from the Conservatives. They need to pipe down. Ooh, you're a harsh man. Speaking of harsh, Kemi Badenoch, she has come under a lot of criticism today following an interview she did with Charlie Peters on GB News. Take a listen to this.
Where do these abuses come from? There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of generalization. Many innocent people end up being grouped in with them. But if you look at it, there is a systematic pattern of behaviour, not even just from one country, but from sub-communities within those countries, people with a particular background, particular class background, work background.
What background is that?
You know, people very, very poor sort of peasant background, very, very rural, almost cut off from even the home origin countries that they might have been in.
I can tell you now, she's come under a lot of pressure about that. Do you agree with what she was saying? Other people are saying that she has to watch her words. This is unacceptable. Apparently she needs to resign, you name it.
No, I think she's absolutely right, frankly, because this is about culture. It's also about religious beliefs. And we're talking about groups of men here. Obviously, a lot of them will be British citizens, may have been born here, but a lot have come here. And what they're doing, they're supporting polygamy, forced marriages, the way they treat girls and the way they treat women, which is shown in what's happened here. There's also a racist element to this, which hasn't really been raised, because what you have is that the girls who've been abused, and these are children, are all white girls So there is also, in my view, a racial element. There's been a massive cover-up, and I think then to just focus on what Kemi may have, how she may have described something, this situation, is a distraction. You know, this national inquiry needs to happen. The J inquiry was very wide-ranging. It was also historical, but it didn't focus on these grooming gangs. And you know, there's, as I say, there have been people in authority, whether it's police, whether it's social workers, whether it's people from local authorities. They have never been held to account. So a lot of the work and the preparation is there in the J inquiry. But at the end of the day, we need something that's focused solely on this. It can be time-limited and it won't be before time. I have a copy here of the executive summary, which I'll leave with you. It's 16 pages. It's very comprehensive, but there's barely any comment about the grooming gang issue.
You don't need to leave it with me. I've actually read it. And actually, you can find an even smaller summary than that one. I think there's an 8-page one or something, an even higher level summary. So if you've not got time to read anything like that, you can even find that one online if that's easier for you all. Matt, where are you?
So I think we should absolutely, we have to underline that nobody should be afraid of speaking out about these issues, and they were in the past, and that's a mistake because they're worried about being labelled racist by speaking out about the issue, by calling out what it is. I do think, though, that Kemi made a mistake in her choice of language. I think the word peasant is pejorative. I don't think it helps anybody to be careless in your language. That doesn't mean that she can't say that there are particular issues amongst people of men of Pakistani heritage in these towns where this has happened. That's one thing. But to start using words like peasant, I think was really inappropriate. I might actually just get backs up.
I don't think we should be sensitive here. I think we need to get to this is a distraction. OK, somebody may have not used quite the correct word, but we knew exactly what she meant. And what she did mean was that we believe, a lot of these men are not the well-educated people who are in the professions. They're often doing probably quite manual jobs. They may have come from areas in Pakistan and other countries which are very rural, where there isn't a high level of education, etc. Then there are the excuses. Then, you know, we've got people that are coming in this country that don't quite understand our culture. Well, they need to understand the rule of law, because the rule of law is damn well clear. And the rule of law is that you do not rape children and you do not rape women.
Absolutely. I think we need people who come...
exactly what they were doing. So, as I said, yes, we can all pick and choose. We all say odd things, even as politicians, and you may
I know, but right, Jacqueline, let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I agree that the time for soft words and all the rest of it, that's gone. It's now time for tough talk, tough action. Many people, though, will watch Kemi Badenoch talking tough, and it seems to be this competition now that who can outdo each other and be harsher with the words, the merciful. People will be shouting at the screen saying, but people like the Tories, they want calling for this national inquiry.
But it was Theresa May that put the J inquiry.
Yeah, but by our own admission, as we've just been discussing, that didn't focus on these rape gangs.
There were individual councillors. There were individual MPs who've tried to.
And Kemi Badenoch didn't even. I think people have gone through loads of Tories Hansard records about how often they mentioned these places. It was barely.
And she was the Children and Families Minister, and she didn't mention it from the dispatch box.
She was for a short time, but we know this has gone on for 30 years, and all parties and all politicians have got to take responsibility. Now we need to focus.
I agree. All parties.
We need to focus on putting those in jail who should be there.
We discussed this last night. I kind of feel it in my waters that we are heading towards a national inquiry, and I really hope that I'm right on that one. You can tell me whether or not you agree. I've literally just got a few seconds left on the show, and I can't leave you without telling you the story that caught my eye. In France, ladies and gents, there was a theatre, and they like to be a little bit edgy, a little bit out there. They regard themselves as doing good for the community and so on and so forth. They put an event on. They invited 250 African migrants to a free refugee event, reinventing the welcome for refugees in France, they said. This event took place on December the 10th. Well, anyway, fast forward, weeks and weeks later, these migrants are now refusing to leave said theatre. The numbers of them have expanded. You've now got about 300 people living there. The situation is an absolute mess. Sanitation, you name it. They won't leave. I mean, it caught my eye. You can say whatever you want. This theatre is now facing bankruptcy because they've had to cancel all of their upcoming performances. Businesses in the local area also been affected. What do you make to that? That's all I've got time for. Matthew, Jacqueline, thank you. Thank you at home. Have a fantastic night. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day.
boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Very good evening to you. Here's your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to tomorrow, and there will be increasing amounts of sunshine from the northwest, and it is going to stay generally dry for most of us. Also, mostly dry through this evening and overnight because of the fact that we have high pressure to the south of us dominating the story. That being said, there's still a weak front across us, and that's bringing some thick cloud across central parts and some drizzly rain, particularly over the higher ground towards the west. There will be some clear skies, particularly over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, but for many it's a cloudy night, and with that then temperatures not dropping a huge amount. A pretty mild start to tomorrow morning, albeit across some eastern parts of Scotland where we have those clearer skies it could be a touch chillier here, and there may even be a little bit of frost. The flip side of that though is there will be some brighter skies across